A bold hello. The sun was setting, painting the quiet street in hues of tangerine and rose. Across the way, Mr. Henderson, his frame still sturdy at 62, was meticulously sweeping the last of the autumn leaves into a tidy mound. Sarah, just turned 18, leaned against her bedroom window frame, a playful smile toying with her lips as she watched him. She knew he often glanced over, then quickly looked away, a habit she found both amusing and a little frustrating. Today, she wouldn't let him retreat into his predictable silence. She raised her hand, a small, tentative wave at first. He didn't seem to notice, or perhaps pretended not to. So, she waved again, a little more emphatically, then a third time, her arm arcing wide until it was impossible to ignore. Finally, he straightened up, resting his broom against the oak tree that shaded his driveway. With a hesitant sigh, he began to cross the road, a slow, measured pace. When he reached her driveway, a faint chuckle rumbled in his chest, a sound she hadn't heard before. "Persistent, aren't you?" he remarked, his eyes, the color of warm amber, crinkling at the corners. Sarah pushed off the doorframe, strolling down the 2 steps to meet him. Her grin widened, a flash of youthful exuberance. "I just turned 18, she announced, her voice a confident lilt. "Thought it was time you finally said hello." A surprised flicker crossed his face, quickly replaced by a wry smile. The air between them, usually thick with unspoken boundaries, thinned and crackled with an unexpected tension. The ordinary evening, the quiet street, suddenly felt charged, alive with a flirty undercurrent neither had anticipated. 18, he mused, his gaze lingering on her for a moment longer than propriety dictated. "Well, happy birthday, Sarah." "And, hello." She laughed, a bright, clear sound that carried on the crisp evening air. "Hello, Mr. Henderson. Or should I call you something else?" His eyebrows lifted slightly. "Mr. Henderson is perfectly fine." But there was a hint of curiosity in his tone, an invitation to push the boundary just a little further. "I prefer Arthur," he offered, almost as an afterthought, his voice a low murmur. Sarah's eyes sparkled. "Arthur. I like that." She took a step closer, the scent of her lilac perfume mingling with the earthy smell of fallen leaves. "So, Arthur, now that we've formally introduced ourselves, what are your plans for this momentous evening?" He seemed momentarily flustered, his usual composure wavering. "My plans? Well, I was going to finish sweeping, perhaps watch the news." "Boring," she declared, shaking her head playfully. "You just turned, well, you've been living a long time, Arthur. Isn't it time for a little excitement?" He chuckled again, a richer sound this time. "Excitement, you say? At my age, excitement usually means finding my glasses without a frantic search." "Nonsense," she countered, her hand lightly touching his arm, a fleeting, electric contact. "I'm celebrating my 18th. And I think you should celebrate with me." He looked down at her hand, then back into her eyes, a complex mix of surprise and intrigued curiosity playing across his features. The setting sun cast long shadows, making the world around them seem to fade, leaving only the two of them suspended in that charged moment. The ordinary boundary between neighbor and neighbor had not just been crossed, it had been effortlessly, audaciously, erased. Small talk, big connections. The amber light of the setting sun softened the edges of the quiet street, painting the neighbor's meticulously kept lawn in hues of gold. He'd finally conceded, a broom resting against his neat pile of leaves, and was now standing on Sarah's driveway. His chuckle had a low rumble to it, a sound that surprised her with its unexpected charm. "Persistent, aren't you?" he repeated, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Sarah, leaning against the doorframe, felt a blush rise to her cheeks, though she met his gaze without flinching. "I just turned 18, she said, her voice a little breathy. "Thought it was time you finally said hello." The air between them, usually so mundane, hummed with a nascent energy, a flirtatious spark neither of them had anticipated. She pushed off the frame, stepping further onto the porch. "You know, for someone who lives right across the street, you're quite the enigma." He adjusted the collar of his faded work shirt, a small smile playing on his lips. "And you, young lady, are quite the observer." He paused, then extended a hand. "Arthur. Though most folks just call me Art." "Sarah," she replied, her hand finding his. His grip was firm, calloused, and surprisingly warm. A jolt, not entirely unpleasant, ran up her arm. She found herself noticing the fine lines around his eyes, the silver threads in his neatly combed hair, the quiet confidence in his posture. He wasn't just the old neighbor anymore. "So, Sarah," Art began, retracting his hand, "what does an 18-year-old observer do with her newfound adulthood?" There was a playful glint in his eyes that made her heart skip a beat. "Well," she mused, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, "for starters, I might finally introduce myself to the mysterious man across the street." She gestured vaguely towards his house. "And perhaps, ask him what he does all day with those incredible tools in his shed. I've seen them glinting from my window." Art's smile broadened. "Ah, the shed. My sanctuary. A man needs his sanctuary." He paused, his gaze lingering on her. "Tell you what, Sarah. Since you're so curious, and since you've finally broken the silence, how about I show you around it sometime? Maybe even teach you a thing or two." The offer, casual as it was, sent a thrill through her. It wasn't just about the tools, it was about the invitation, the shared interest, the unexpected bridge being built between them. "I'd like that very much, Art," she said, her voice softer than she intended. "I'd like that a lot." The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery oranges and purples. A comfortable silence settled between them, no longer awkward but filled with unspoken possibilities. The crickets began their nightly symphony, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves in the oak tree beside her house. The ordinary evening had indeed transformed, blossoming into something unexpectedly promising. A helping hand. The persistent scent of freshly cut grass mingled with the faint, sweet perfume of honeysuckle as Sarah watched Mr. Henderson, his frame still sturdy despite his years, deftly wrangle a recalcitrant pile of autumn leaves. Her 18th birthday had passed with a quiet dinner and a new sense of possibility, a subtle shift in the air that seemed to hum just for her. When he finally looked up, catching her eye, she didn't just offer a polite nod. Instead, she raised her hand and waved, a broad, impish grin spreading across her face. He paused, broom held aloft, a faint smile touching his lips before he returned to his task. Undeterred, Sarah waved again, a little more emphatically this time. He stopped, leaned the broom against the oak, and slowly started across the street. "Persistent, aren't you?" he chuckled, reaching her driveway, his eyes crinkling at the corners. The golden hour light caught the silver threads in his hair, making them gleam. Sarah leaned against the doorframe, the cool wood a pleasant contrast to the warmth radiating from her cheeks. "I just turned 18, she announced, her voice a playful challenge. "Thought it was time you finally said hello." A comfortable silence stretched between them, not awkward, but filled with an unspoken current. Mr. Henderson simply nodded, a thoughtful expression on his face. 18, huh? That's a big one." He kicked at a stray pebble with the toe of his boot. "My daughter, she turned 18 almost 30 years ago. Left for college the next week. Never really came back." His voice was tinged with a familiar melancholy, a quiet sorrow Sarah had noticed before, tucked away in the corners of his usually cheerful demeanor. Sarah's playful grin softened. "I'm sorry," she said, genuinely. She wondered if he was lonely, living in that big house by himself. An idea, half-formed and a little daring, began to blossom. "You know," she began, "I'm not really sure what I'm doing with my summer. I was thinking of maybe doing some odd jobs, earning a little extra cash before I figure out what's next." She paused, letting the implication hang in the air. "I'm pretty good with my hands. And I'm strong." She gestured vaguely at the well-maintained flower beds around his house. "Your yard always looks so nice, but I bet it's a lot of work." Mr. Henderson's gaze drifted from her to his sprawling garden, then back. A flicker of something, surprise, perhaps, or a dawning realization, crossed his features. He considered her for a long moment, the playful glint in his eyes returning, mixed with something else, something deeper. "You know," he said, his voice a low rumble, "I have been meaning to tackle that old shed in the back. It's a mess. Full of junk. Probably a rat's nest by now." He paused, a wry smile playing on his lips. "And I could certainly use a helping hand." Sarah felt a thrill, a blend of excitement and a touch of nerves. This was it, the first step into something new. "Perfect," she said, her voice bright. "When can I start?" Sweet gestures. The sweet scent of warm cinnamon rolls filled the kitchen, a welcome anchor against the nervous flutter in Sarah's stomach. She meticulously arranged them on a cooling rack, each perfect swirl a testament to her morning's effort. It was a small offering, she knew, yet she hoped it would speak volumes beyond simple etiquette. Across the street, Mr. Henderson's window glowed, a soft beacon in the deepening twilight. Taking a fortifying breath, she cradled the basket and stepped into the crisp evening. The short journey across the asphalt felt interminable. Every crunch of gravel beneath her sneakers seemed amplified in the hushed air. On his porch, she hesitated, her knuckles hovering. What if he was busy? What if he found it peculiar? Before doubt could take root, the door swung open. Mr. Henderson stood there, a book in one hand, his spectacles perched at the tip of his nose. A faint smile played on his lips as he registered her presence. "Well, this is an unexpected pleasure," he rumbled, his voice a warm current. His eyes, a surprising hazel, glinted with gentle amusement. "Hi," Sarah managed, extending the basket. I overbaked. Thought you might enjoy some." He accepted the offering, his fingers brushing hers in a fleeting contact, an almost imperceptible spark passing between them. "Cinnamon rolls?" he murmured, inhaling deeply. "My absolute favorite." "You are far too kind, Sarah." He stepped aside, inviting her in. "Come in, don't stand out there in the evening chill. Have one with me." The living room enveloped her in a cozy embrace, imbued with the aroma of aged paper and a subtle, unidentifiable warmth, not quite pipe tobacco. Bookshelves sagged under their weight, and a plush armchair beckoned beside a dancing fire. He placed the basket on a small side table and gestured toward the sofa. "Please." Sarah sank down, a blush warming her neck. He returned with 2 steaming mugs, setting one before her. "English breakfast," he announced. "I trust that's agreeable?" "Perfect," she whispered, savoring the mug's warmth against her hands. He broke off a piece of a cinnamon roll, offering it to her before taking a bite himself. A comfortable quiet settled, punctuated only by the fire's crackle and the delicate clinking of china. The air, initially taut with her apprehension, now felt effortless. After a moment, he regarded her, his expression contemplative. "You know," he began, his gaze softening, "it's been an age since anyone brought me homemade treats. Or, for that matter, simply dropped by to visit." Sarah met his gaze, a quiet understanding blossoming between them. "Well," she said, her voice a touch hesitant, "I just thought, it would be nice." He smiled then, a genuine, unburdened curve that transformed his face. "It is," he affirmed. "It's very nice indeed." The firelight flickered across his features, underscoring the deep kindness in his eyes. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of his home and his unexpected candor, a surprising contentment bloomed within Sarah's chest. The nervous flutter had receded, replaced by a quiet sense of connection. This simple gesture, she realized, had unlatched a door she hadn't even known existed. Tea and whispers. The scent of Earl Grey mingled with the faint, comforting aroma of old books and something vaguely floral, lavender, perhaps, as Sarah settled onto the plush velvet armchair. Across from her, Mr. Henderson, perched on a matching settee, poured from a delicate porcelain teapot adorned with faded roses. The late afternoon light, softened by the lace curtains, painted the elegant drawing room in hues of gold and cream. He offered a plate of shortbread biscuits, his eyes twinkling. "1 lump or 2, my dear?" Sarah took a moment to appreciate the scene, a stark contrast to her own modern, minimalist home. Just one, thank you, she said, accepting the cup. The fine china felt surprisingly light in her hands. This is lovely, Mr. Henderson. Thank you for inviting me. Please, call me Arthur, he corrected gently, his smile kind. And it's my pleasure. It's not every day a charming young woman decides to befriend an old recluse. He leaned back, his gaze lingering on her. I must admit, your persistence yesterday was quite refreshing. Sarah felt a blush creep up her neck. Well, I believe in making my own opportunities. She took a sip of the tea, its warmth a soothing counterpoint to the nervous flutter in her stomach. I also believe in getting to know my neighbors. Especially the intriguing ones. Arthur chuckled, a low, rumbling sound. Intriguing, am I? He picked up a small, silver-framed photograph from a nearby side table, his expression softening as he gazed at it. This was my wife, Eleanor. She passed many years ago. Sarah's eyes followed his. The woman in the photo had a gentle smile and intelligent eyes, not unlike Arthur's. I'm so sorry, she offered genuinely. She looks lovely. She was, he agreed, placing the frame back down with care. We had a good life. A quiet life. He paused, his gaze meeting hers again, a hint of something unreadable in their depths. You remind me a little of her, Sarah. Her spirit, I mean. Eleanor always had a way of bringing light into a room. The compliment, unexpected, made Sarah's cheeks flush brighter. That's very kind of you to say, Arthur. She shifted in her seat, suddenly aware of the intimacy of the moment. The air, once filled with polite small talk, now hummed with a different kind of energy, a delicate thread of unspoken emotion weaving between them. She cleared her throat. So, you've lived here a long time, haven't you? He nodded, taking a slow sip of his own tea. Decades. This house holds many memories. His eyes scanned the room, as if seeing ghosts in the shadows. Good ones, mostly. But some are best left undisturbed. He set his cup down, a subtle shift in his demeanor, the easy warmth replaced by a thoughtful solemnity. There are things about this street, Sarah, that most people don't know. Things that lie beneath the surface. Sarah leaned forward, intrigued. What kind of things, she whispered, the earlier flirtatious air forgotten, replaced by a growing sense of curiosity and a prickle of unease. The shadows in the room seemed to deepen, the quiet whispers of the old house suddenly more pronounced. Arthur sighed, a long, weary sound. Secrets, my dear. Secrets that have a way of echoing through time. He looked at her intently, his gaze unwavering. And sometimes, those echoes can be very dangerous. Gossips sting. The clatter of Mrs. Henderson's teacups always preceded her, a tiny herald of impending social disaster. Sarah, pouring herself a glass of iced tea, barely registered the sound until the insistent ringing of the doorbell shattered the quiet afternoon. A glance through the peephole confirmed her suspicions. Mrs. Henderson, flanked by Mrs. Albright, stood poised on her porch, expressions a carefully crafted blend of concern and morbid curiosity. Sarah, dear, Mrs. Henderson began, her voice a syrupy whisper as Sarah opened the door a crack. We just happened to be passing by and thought we'd check in. Such a surprising turn of events, isn't it? Sarah's spine stiffened. She knew exactly what they were referring to. The whispers had started almost immediately after her innocent, if slightly audacious, wave to Mr. Abernathy. Now, they were a roaring current, twisting and distorting her actions into something ugly and salacious. She forced a smile. Everything's quite all right, thank you. Mrs. Albright, a woman whose eyes missed nothing, leaned forward conspiratorially. We heard about your little chat with Mr. Abernathy. Some folks are saying, she paused, letting the unspoken implications hang heavy in the air. Saying what, Mrs. Albright? Sarah asked, her voice betraying none of the anger churning within her. She was 18, not a child, but the judgmental stares of these women made her feel small and vulnerable. Just that it's a bit inappropriate, dear, Mrs. Henderson chimed in, adjusting her spectacles. A man of his age, and a young woman like yourself. It raises questions, you see. Sarah's composure snapped. It was a friendly wave, Mrs. Henderson. Nothing more. We were just talking. Their expressions remained unchanged, a wall of feigned sympathy and unyielding judgment. Of course, dear, Mrs. Henderson murmured, though her tone suggested the exact opposite. We just thought you should be aware of the talk. The front door of Mr. Abernathy's house creaked open across the street. He emerged, a watering can in hand, to tend to his petunias. His gaze met Sarah's, a brief, worried flicker in his usually calm eyes. Sarah felt a pang of guilt. Her playful impulse had brought this unwelcome scrutiny down on him too. That evening, Sarah sat at her window again, but the joy was gone. The streetlights cast long, unsettling shadows. Mr. Abernathy was also by his window, a silhouette against the fading light. He didn't wave. He didn't even look her way. The comfortable ease that had blossomed between them, however fleetingly, had been replaced by a palpable tension. The weight of the gossip was a physical presence, a suffocating blanket that had fallen over their budding, innocent connection. She clenched her fists, the sting of injustice burning in her chest. This wasn't just about her, it was about the insidious power of whispers to dismantle trust and poison reputations. A painful distance. The truck's interior was a tomb, its silence a tangible weight pressing down on Sarah as they pulled away from the bustling county fair. The lingering sense of fried dough and livestock, still clinging to the air, felt like a cruel mockery against the stark quiet between them. Her hands, clammy and cold, clenched the denim of her jeans. She risked a quick glance. His profile, a rigid silhouette against the fading twilight, remained unyielding, eyes fixed on the ribbon of asphalt ahead. The easy laughter, the shared glances over caramel apples, the thrilling brush of his arm against hers, all of it had receded into a distant, painful memory. So, that's it then, she finally whispered, the question impossibly small against the chasm that had opened between them. He didn't turn. What else is there to say, Sarah? His voice, flat and barren, offered no hint of the warmth she'd come to cherish. You're 18. I'm not. What happened tonight was a mistake. A profound one. The words landed like a physical blow. A mistake. All the stolen glances, the lingering touches, the whispered confessions, reduced to a regrettable misstep. Her chest constricted, stealing her breath. A mistake, she repeated, her voice rising, cracking with the press of unshed tears. You don't think I have a say in that? He finally swiveled, his gaze heavy, a murky blend of regret and something she couldn't quite decipher. You don't understand, Sarah. This isn't just about us. It's about everything. Our neighbors, your parents, my job. He made a vague gesture, as if encompassing the entire world beyond the truck's cab. There are lines, and we crossed them. A painful flush crept up her neck. She understood the societal implications, the inevitable judgment. But the raw sting was in his abrupt dismissal of their connection, his immediate retreat. So you're just going to pretend it never happened? Her voice trembled, quiet indignation warring with burgeoning heartbreak. It's for the best, he murmured, his gaze snapping back to the road, jaw tightly set. The finality in his tone was crushing. The distance between them, once measured in inches, now felt like continents. She stared out the window, familiar streetlights blurring through her watering eyes. The playful wave, the shared laughter over the fence, all swept away, replaced by an aching void. The truck idled in her driveway, the engine's rumble a loud, intrusive sound in the suffocating quiet. He didn't offer to walk her to the door, didn't even meet her gaze. Good night, Sarah, he said, his voice a threadbare whisper. She fumbled with the door handle, her fingers stiff. She longed to scream, to plead, to demand an explanation that made sense, but no words came. She merely slipped out, the cool night air a shock against her hot cheeks, and closed the door without a backward glance. As she walked toward her house, the truck's headlights briefly illuminated her path, then swung away, leaving her in the sudden, echoing darkness. Wisdom's embrace. The aroma of freshly brewed tea mingled with the scent of old books as Sarah followed Mr. Henderson into his living room. The setting sun, now a deep orange, streamed through the large window, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. His home was a sanctuary of comfort and history, filled with antique furniture and shelves overflowing with texts spanning centuries. He gestured towards a plush armchair. "Make yourself comfortable, Sarah. I imagine you have questions." Sarah settled in, the soft fabric a comforting contrast to the nervous energy humming within her. She clutched the faded photograph of her grandmother and the enigmatic locket. "My grandmother." She mentioned a guardian of knowledge. "Is that you?" Mr. Henderson smiled, a gentle crinkling around his eyes. He poured 2 cups of tea, the clinking of porcelain a soft rhythm in the quiet room. "In a manner of speaking. Your grandmother, Alara, was a remarkable woman. She entrusted me with certain legacies." He handed her a steaming cup. "She knew a day would come when you would seek answers." Sarah took a sip, the herbal warmth spreading through her. "She said you'd help me understand the locket, and what I am." She looked down at the silver locket, its intricate carvings seeming to pulse faintly in the dimming light. "Indeed." Mr. Henderson leaned forward, his gaze steady and kind. "The locket is a key, Sarah. Not to a physical lock, but to a hidden truth. It resonates with a unique energy, an ancient lineage that flows through your family. Your grandmother, like you, possessed a gift, the ability to perceive and manipulate the subtle energies that bind our world." He paused, allowing the weight of his words to settle. "You, Sarah, are a conduit. A bridge between the ordinary and the extraordinary." A shiver, not of fear but of profound recognition, traced down Sarah's spine. "A conduit?" "Yes. It means you can channel and direct these energies. Your grandmother called it weaving. It's why you sometimes feel a pull, a hum beneath the surface of things. It's why you can sense emotions, or sometimes, influence them." He picked up a small, smooth river stone from a nearby table. "This stone, for most, is just a stone. For you, with practice, it could be a conduit for warmth, for comfort, even for healing." Sarah's mind reeled. The odd occurrences, the uncanny intuitions, the way she sometimes felt connected to the very air around her, it all began to make a terrifying, exhilarating sense. My grandmother, she could do this too? And more, Mr. Henderson confirmed. She used her gifts to protect, to guide, to maintain a delicate balance that few are aware of. Now, that responsibility, in part, falls to you. The streetlights outside flickered on, casting long shadows into the room. The quiet street no longer felt charged with flirtation, but with a profound, almost sacred, purpose. Sarah looked at the locket, then at the gentle, knowing face of Mr. Henderson. A path, once shrouded in mystery, was beginning to reveal itself. The wisdom in his embrace was not just a metaphor, it was a living, breathing guide to her own awakening. The quiet peace returns. The quiet street felt suddenly charged, the ordinary evening now laced with flirty tension neither had expected. The neighbor, Mr. Henderson, cleared his throat, the sound a low rumble in the stillness. 18, huh? That's a significant number. His eyes, usually crinkled at the corners from years of smiling at community events, now held a new, unreadable glint. It certainly is, Sarah agreed, pushing off the doorframe and taking a step closer. The air between them hummed. Means I'm officially an adult. Old enough to make my own decisions. She let her gaze linger on his, a silent challenge in her eyes. The scent of freshly cut grass and the faint, sweet perfume of honeysuckle from her porch mingled in the twilight. Mr. Henderson's chuckle returned, a little softer this time. And what decisions are those, Sarah? His voice was a gentle query, but the underlying current was undeniable. He shifted his weight, and the rustle of his work pants was the only sound for a moment. Oh, you know, she said, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper, the kind of decisions that involve late-night talks and maybe, a shared cup of coffee. She gestured vaguely towards the darkened kitchen behind her. Unless you're afraid of a little conversation with a newly minted adult? A genuine smile finally broke across his face, easing the tension, though not entirely dispelling it. Afraid? Hardly. Curious, perhaps. He paused, looking from her playful eyes to the inviting darkness of her house. A cup of coffee sounds intriguing, Sarah. Just a cup of coffee? Sarah's grin was pure mischief. For now. We wouldn't want to rush things, would we, Mr. Henderson? She turned, a subtle sway to her hips, and pushed open the screen door. Come on in. It's getting chilly out here. He hesitated for a heartbeat, then followed her. The click of the screen door closing behind him was a definitive sound, marking a shift in the evening, a quiet, unexpected beginning. Inside, the dim light of the living room cast long shadows, making the space feel intimate. Sarah moved with an easy confidence, heading towards the kitchen. 2 sugars, right, she called over her shoulder, remembering a long-ago conversation. You remember, he said, a note of surprise in his voice as he stepped into the living room, his eyes scanning the familiar, yet suddenly unfamiliar, space. The air inside held a faint scent of vanilla and old books, a domestic warmth. I remember a lot of things, Mr. Henderson, Sarah replied, her voice soft but clear from the kitchen. The clatter of mugs and the gentle gurgle of the coffee maker filled the silence. The quiet peace had returned, but it was a different kind of peace now, one laced with anticipation and the thrilling uncertainty of what might unfold under the guise of shared coffee. He settled onto the edge of the sofa, watching the faint glow from the kitchen, a thoughtful expression on his face. The street outside was now completely dark, holding its breath with them.